trying to get it into the perfect spot for me as a 6'2" man. And the technician said you have it's on a ball joint and you have a certain amount of range in which to adjust it, and you need to bring it back in again and then adjust it up, and then it might go out a bit or it might not. It's sort of, that's how much range there is really. And I've just fiddled with it, sort of got it to where I'd like it to be. So I guess if you're a taller man, I think somebody posted actually on the earlier video, what's it like if you're 6'4" and I'm 6'2", and I've got this much room, but I also put my seat quite far up. And anyway, just consider the wing mirrors. They're quite fine. They're absolutely fine, these wing mirrors. I think the Tourneo that we test drove may have had better ones. It had big ones with a sort of like a panoramic bit at the bottom. But then this has a blind spot monitoring thing that's quite clever, that has a little LED in it that glows orange if there's a car sort of behind here. Now, since I have a motorcycle license, I can't help myself but do the lifesaver every time I pull out anywhere, and so it's sort of a moot point really, but pretty useful. Again, another safety feature. Thinking about it, I was actually quite heavily swayed by the safety aspects of this car. Being a father, quite late in life, I'm very much in love with my children, and I'm very passionate about keeping them safe now. When you're buying a car these days, I never would have thought I would pay attention to Euro NCAP ratings and having lots of sporty cars and not really thinking about crashworthiness, but thinking about lightweight and responsiveness and so on and so forth. And actually, comparing this to the Tourneo in particular, because, as I said in the earlier video, it's sold through a van channel, they don't really care. We'll probably talk a little bit about it, but it's not family oriented. It's not high in the sort of list of priorities for the kind of chap that's going to be buying a van, and so they don't really know what to say when someone comes in and says, I'm worried about my children's safety, do you have ISOFIX? And we had to go and have a look at the van they had in the showroom. Sorry, it was actually out of the showroom, having its battery recharged in their workshop. It's sort of dark and grimy and horrible, but we managed to locate the ISOFIX points eventually. The poor salesman didn't really know what they looked like, and I had to come with him and stick my fingers in and go, look, there's a little tag that says ISOFIX. So you would want to think very carefully about that if you're buying something just pulled out on me. You're wanting to buy a van-like car like this, then this is pretty good. This is going to be probably the best bet in terms of safety. That said, you don't know with Volkswagen and the Caravelle. Volkswagen have a great reputation for safety, and they pay attention to it. I'm sure Ford do as well. It might well be that the Tourneo is pretty good. I have no idea. If you're interested, do your research. From a pricing perspective, Tourneo is a lot cheaper, of course, and I did a lot of hunting around for best prices. I actually bought this through CarWow and saved about 13 grand off the list price. So if you were confused, in my earlier video I was talking about how expensive the V-Class was, because technically list with all the options that we were interested in, it was about 55 grand. I was like, 55 grand? Let's look at it, but we're not going to buy it, are we? And I looked on CarWow, and the best value I could get out of a dealer was somewhere around 48, 49, and that's still beyond what I want to spend on a car. Well, car at that nature anyway. So this I bought through CarWow at 32.5, even though the list on it is about 44. And that I think was pretty exceptional, because this one was one they wanted to get rid of. It was in their showroom. It is missing its rear row seats, which are coming in as a spare part order, because the dealer wanted to help out another customer who had a Traveller, and their rear seats were faulty or something. Couldn't get the part in time, so he took one out of the showroom, the ones out of the car in the showroom, and gave them to his other customer, and then said to me, look, can you do without for a month or so? In fact, I had to chase them up today and say, where are they? But not that I needed those receipts particularly. It'd be nice a couple of times to take a couple of friends on a journey together with the family, but it doesn't really matter to me, and I'm very grateful for having saved effectively 12 grand off list, something like that. Anyway, worth investigating the car about if you're interested in buying and paying cash. The Tourneo that we found was going to be about 25.5 because it was a dealer pre-reg, and it was a longer wheelbase than this, so it would have had more room in it. And I was tempted because of the price difference again between that and this, about £7 grand, not to be sniffed at. And you know, if you can endure the manual gearbox and my wife is happy with it generally, then it'll be fine. But actually, didn't have sat nav, didn't have, you know, this auto box does make a difference if you're stuck in traffic on the M5, as a lot of people were this weekend. Didn't envy people trying to get out of the West Country on Sunday, because it was nose to tail all the way up from Taunton to Bristol. I think we were coming the other way. So in those circumstances, you know, changing you'd be pissed off before you know it, and it's so much better to have an auto box. So in the end, I'm very happy that we spent the money that we did spend. I wouldn't have been happy spending 44. I think I misled people when I said, is it worth the money? It is if you get a discount, very much so. And actually probably at 44, given today's inflationary pressures and what have you, it's probably reasonably priced. But then when you find a Tourneo at 25, if you could only get one of these at 44, I would have bought the Tourneo and endured the manual gearbox and that sat nav, because you can easily get a TomTom, so it's really no big deal. And it did have Bluetooth telephony, so you know, that's another big thing. But safety not there in comparison, or at least not visibly, obviously there compared to this car. So very happy with this car. Just talking about the check, I had them look at as well. There's a bit of a rattle coming from back here, and they couldn't reproduce it. Actually, it disappeared after a while. So there was a sort of suggestion that you do have 2 car seats back here and lots of gubbins in the car from children that are sort of, you know, floating around the cabin somewhere. Perhaps that was it. To which the answer is perhaps it was, but I was pretty convinced it was coming from there. Anyway, the rattle's gone, and it's just a rattle. And then mysteriously the bit where you sort of kick under the bumper and then the doors slide away, that stopped working. And they said, oh, we fixed that because there's a setting on the sat-nav thing here where you can turn off the accessibility features, and they were turned off, and that's why it wasn't working. Now, why I would have gone in there and turned them off, I don't know. I don't know why they were turned off. It wasn't me. It wouldn't have been my daughter sat here in the driver's seat playing with buttons or anything, because she's 2.5 and doesn't know particularly how to navigate her way through a sat-nav, and the ignition key wouldn't have, the ignition wouldn't have been on. So it's not that. My wife hasn't really driven it, and certainly wouldn't have been driving this and going to turn off the accessibility features. It's a bit weird that it turned itself off. Crank that one up, or notch that one up as a snafu. And then the rear wiper was the other thing I had them look at, and that's a bit of a weird one because it sometimes just doesn't want to turn on at all. I don't know why. I'll turn it on now when it goes. I flick the wipers, and auto wipe comes on. Deactivated actually. And auto wipe's a bit slow sometimes. I quite like a nice clear screen, and it's fine once the rain pressure gets over a certain amount. But when it's just sort of spitting enough to slowly fill the screen, it doesn't flick clean quickly enough for my taste. But that's what we have to do, is just, you know, put the stalk back. That's not particularly taxing. But the rear wiper is meant to come on, and I checked on the settings, it's meant to come on when you're going to reverse to sort of clear the screen for you, particularly if you've got the wipers on. It wouldn't do that because I reversed out my drive this morning and it wasn't switch on, and the car was covered in water from dew and overnight rain. And driving along this ostensibly an A road in North Devon, it was not coming on at all, but it was set on go and it wasn't coming on at all, and I could have turned it off and on, but just as an experiment I thought maybe it's something to do with the auto wipers. I waited for the auto wipers to sort of flick, and I can't remember if they did or didn't actually, and certainly the rear wiper didn't work. And they looked at it and they said, oh, it only comes on if the wipers are on. And driving back home here, I'm not sure that's true, so I can't really comment on it. I'll just keep keep an eye on it and see how we go. Now, these are relatively minor things. you know, you buy a new car and you expect a few sort of minor niggles, particularly in a slightly newer car. The newer it is in the product cycle, the less chance there is that they've found all the sort of niggles that only appear in the field and fixed them. So I'm quite happy with the fact is basically the car is pretty faultless, and that's what you should expect from a new car these days, really. A little bit of refinement on the drive. I'm pretty convinced actually that the way this particular car drives is very much more understeery and less grippy and less good in the wet, because of the fact that it has the all-weather tyres on, no, all-season tyres. And I said earlier that I was happy that it had those, and thinking about it, I don't think, I mean, if it was muddy or snowy, I wouldn't want to take this car out. You know, in those very rare occasions when it's particularly snowy, would it make sense to take this car, being heavier and doesn't have four-wheel drive and etc., you know, for emergencies? I live out in the country, I need to get to the hospital. Technically there is an air ambulance, and you know, the ambulances do get to your home relatively quickly. It's possible that you live in central London, you're worse off for ambulance response. But regardless, you know, there might be times when I think I need to get to A&E and it's snowing outside, and would I feel comfortable taking this car? I don't know. I should really have thought more carefully about just spending some money on some spare rims for my Yeti and putting all season tyres on that. And the fact that this car has all season tyres on with big chunky tread pattern on and so on means that at this sort of speed, 40 miles an hour, it's fine. And as soon as you start to up the pace, or if you lose a bit of focus on a twisty road and come in a little bit too fast on a bend and you need to turn the wheel, it will understeer a lot more than it would if it had conventional tyres on, and lurch a bit, and I'm sure the ride isn't as good. So I don't want to put you off thinking that this car doesn't handle particularly well or doesn't ride particularly well. Probably would ride better, and certainly in the context of a van type car, I think this is fine. Well worth just driving it within its capabilities and believing that it's going to be relatively safe. Since I've talked a lot about safety, having the all-weather all-season tyres on makes it perhaps a little less safe in more circumstances where you're in, like today, the road is just a bit greasy. It has rained, but it's dry. I have no idea what its stopping distance is going to be. Maybe I've added a couple of metres worth of stopping distance onto this car because it doesn't have more conventional tyres on. Don't know. I mean, when these tyres come to be replaced, I'll think carefully about replacing them with regular tyres. That's what I'm going to say. And in the meantime, I don't think I'm unsafe by having them on. Certainly not. But and I bet you these ones are way better than some Chinese remolds that you can buy at half the price of a pair of Michelin's or Bridgestones or Goodyears or whatever, because they're cheap but they're crap. They genuinely just read up on them, and they will stop in an extra, you know, need an extra 10% of road in order to stop. I'm not happy with that at all, so I wouldn't spend the money. I wouldn't save the money buying one of those. I'd spend the money on something that has been tested by Which to Express or whoever, and has been shown to be great at stopping in the wet and in the dry. That would be my preference. Anything else? Sort of things that just irritate me lightly. There's a button here called config on the steering wheel. What does that mean? Well, you're meant to configure things. It doesn't configure anything. It just scrolls up and down. Basically, 4 settings on the little display in the dashboard here, and the display in the dashboard is nowhere near as informative as the one on the Yeti, which will sort of reset itself after you've been sat there for an hour and a half or something, and so you know on any particular journey what your miles per gallon has been, and also how long you've been driving, which is actually something I quite frequently need to know. So when did we leave? How long have you been going? You know, that's actually quite a common question. It doesn't do that. It tells you information I'm not interested in. It tells me my miles per gallon, which is okay. It tells me how many miles I've gone, but I have to go up to the sort of instantaneous consumption field, I just missed it, in order to get the range. Does make sense. I need to know range and perhaps how long I've been driving, not how long I've stopped and the auto engine off feature has been running. So I thought, oh well, maybe by some combination of manipulating this button, I can configure it, because it says config, and I have to look in the manual, I suppose, on TFM, but there's no way of doing anything with it other than resetting and then cycling between these four options that make no sense to me. It's my irritation, really. What else? Nothing else to report at this stage. So far, so happy. Camping again this month. I am looking forward to it, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we'll have an Indian summer, because at the moment it's just wet. But that said, still quite nice when it's wet, because it's nice being under campers if it's raining. It's just not nice putting up and taking down again if it's wet. I prefer it to be dry when I'm doing that. Okay. Alright, well, until the next time.